So I just watched about 45 minutes or 40 minutes of Tucker Carlson did an interview with a guy who said who said there was evidence, or it was reported that there was pictures that to the public that there was bombs planted at the DNC and at the RNC. I missed the beginning. I missed part of it, but they don't know who the guy or he they don't know who knows, because they use the right to lie where they don't have the right to lie. And this is recorded because the FBI has predicate acts with fax rolls and with pipe bomb methods with names on the judicial branch officers and conjunctive to it, who have been planting through time all along Hangdog Lane and Two Rod Highway. They'll tell you people tied to one's named Dylan are increasingly involved as people at Harvard Hospital with a whole bunch of different countries, with a whole bunch of different courts at other locations, as there or at other locations. The rules at all ages and natures of campuses, and the difference of that too. But this is at every country. What really kept the worst uses of overt criminal enterprises and terrorists in the same time as the interbranch with witch trials, even if they were made up. And while they describe what they're about so far, till you guys start less paying attention, natural law is real. In other words, we have been systems tactical terror from that hypernative pure. Otherwise, we sense, and no one else could be that system. In other words, there are more World Trade Center predicate acts with the differences between. It's clearer than day. Most of us know. If we pay attention, anyone's honest, they'll know. They're putting faked and changed evidences, including just faking transcripts to pretend things were recorded at locations that are recorded like 24/7, including campuses, including medical campuses and fire campuses. No one's checking that. Where and how the differences between the names of the people, the sciences, the exceptions, even the sports, even but the making that the difference as a certain type of with forgiveness is so that we can get through them changing and faking our words roles as collusion/s. And the prisons increasingly are involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, all kinds of natures of organized crimes. It is just concentrated with psychiatry and where people speak about reason and principles. Apart from these, too, James Madison and the founders behind him and his plan, we were supposed to refer to them plural as James Madison. And then they went and got George Washington to agree to use that plan. And no one had free speech. Everyone was being measured by this thing. As more than 13 colonies were entrenched with slavery entrenched, northern colonies, southern colonies, by the same exact breaching method, sickly distinctly too, to measure anyone's going to try to do damage control syntactically, other than ways it needed. In other words, there's no way that we're just going to do the same thing anyway. It measures and maintains other things, others, ourselves for what it blamed for what it caused historically, and for what nature is and demonstrating as other, and because it's increasingly causing that too. It is not by accident they have these debates about sexuality and things like that with the schools. From off the campuses, and the shootings with the schools at the same time, the schools are being used and have been used to maintain collusion/s pretended not realized. Like, in other words, and confessions come because they put fake. I never had conversations with doctors at all at Harvard Hospital. They forced me there for like 3 days. And they pretended through the mail to other people that they had conversations with me. And then I can't get anyone to respond to me. One's one whole family named Leahy. One's named Lombardo. One's named Walters, involved with between different ages and natures of campuses, with a whole bunch of different countries, with people that I never even had classes with, and others that try to make fake exceptions, and with digital crimes with Joshua Julian, as one's involved with the World Trade Center predicate acts with the Connecticut News too, distinctly with each place too, and with names next to them tied to them and their sources at the same time. And then they'll lie, but it's not personal. You guys attach me to fake conversations to pretend that too, because there are other countries involved. Connecticut's Channel 3 News has people with the Saudi Arabia. I don't even know their name. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed involved with people that went to my schools that I never had classes with, that have been putting predicate acts in databases. All exceptions is recorded. They'll tell you that's we never had those communications. You know, I only have good feelings for everyone. All exceptions were relative because they were doing a behavior racketeering method. Roles, motivations increasingly. Since we were little kids, we knew. So these are people that increasingly jump, in other words, and not online. And where I didn't say things that could make someone say, oh, you know, like that, they're leaving out what's actually recorded. No one was paying attention. I didn't have obligations to tell anyone like that. Like a Robert Rodriguez confirmed on Facebook. He's one of the ones I never had a conversation with. They tried to make it look like once when I was a little kid, when someone was talking to him. And I never even saw him on the campus. I don't know where Robert Rodriguez went to school. I don't know where he works, where he does. I know where places associated with through Facebook. They have something to do too with Mike Roberts and a family, a Daryl Chandler. I don't know him either. He tried to make a fake exception when I was a freshman. And it has something to do with their people, their roles with people with Russia and Korea and Italy and Germany, etc. In other words, but it's their own against their own, our own against our own, but only because there's a hyper foreign there. But it made exceptions and made in a way that are only capable of increasing until we are led by that identity that is true always, not denying the slightest detail left out, not denying the value, the difference between the order of the finite or the finite, which is simultaneously distinct from what is grouped. In other words, people are using truths for lies. America is not supposed to be about an experiment. We're supposed to finish the communications of our founders, which is to show how their words are there are roles self-valued haven't been used remotely, using their words, leaving out what they declassified about them. Leaving out that what nature itself and our founders communicated about the breaching method that was measuring and maintaining everyone's words, everyone's motivations, narratives, everyone's motivations, emotions, descriptions. You could take a stranger and go, bah, and scare them and then say they're scared. Or you could, in other words, when they come around the corner, in other words, what if that person is doing that to make it look like they knew them before that? And when someone else is involved with that too, because that's increasingly involved at this time. A whole bunch of people intra-campuses, intercities through time. And Hartford Hospital has a whole bunch of people with the Institute of Living, and people tied to them, and various natures of conjunctions to them that are being exploited too, as their collusions with more security with the schools, increasingly involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and not legitimately where and how they're pretending, where they have the people on up the corrections offices of Connecticut and its location and nature and next to it and driving by it. No. When people speak to you guys, everyone remembers the conversation. And people from Wethersfield, please communicate with me on YouTube. The ones who communicated on Facebook, I didn't say anything. Please remember, there's a Joshua Julian on YouTube too. He's one of the ones recorded with a whole bunch of people tied to former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, involved with federal evidences, crimes, and predicate acts on all sides of my house, with a whole bunch of people and their family members, with predicate acts, with facts. Just like that, we're going to, no, I'm not even a lawyer. Lawyers, all sides of criminal and civil cases, all kinds of legal scams on a mass scale. This breaching method and forgiveness is because this breaching method employed everyone to respond syntactically the way it had them, other to keep styles. No, I forgot I was speaking about this video with Tucker Carlson. No. But I mean, all of these things connect. Black people, we have black people's rights of eyes. The other people, and that's left out of this conversation too. The nature of debate contains quality aspects in nature. Like, for example, don't change my words, people. There's short words. Connecticut interbranch, switch names, forge names, falsify police reports. Every time they do it, a number of times, they make an array of falsified police reports and switch officers' names as collusion/S with crime scenes at the same time with a whole bunch of different countries, overt criminal enterprises and private ones. And then you guys fish pretending and make us guilty more and hide the breaching method. And you have rules with conspiracy theories because you have tactically delusions or criminally foreign influence, experts on reason, and readings of American history roles, a collusion/S because they have reliance upon that. In other words, all kinds of drugs and medicines, crimes are not just that. It's the legal people tied to it, and their family members are interbranch. They're saying all the difference of branch because they're showing they need to pretend. They have people with the name Delaferro, which actually recorded. I never had a class with them, never saw them around the campuses. One time from a distance, he yelled out, and one time at a thing, he messed up. I was going to have a conversation. In other words, at a prom, a senior prom. In other words, increasingly these are people involved with the FBI. The executive branch has rules with also the judicial branch and foreign and domestic military, foreign and domestic intelligence, pilots, all natures of them, their family members. Their rows of names conjunctive to roads and routes, and next to every location on the ground distinction, which is manifest in relative/hyper-relative ways. A Joshua Julian is also involved with a Joshua Stryker and others I don't know who have been planting evidences on my street and at each of the campuses I went before I was there too. And there are proofs that this is before everyone was born. This was going on, the predicate acts with facts method/S. We can make all these negatives into hyper positives. And if we find out that it's a criminal insidious nature of positive, it will advance our hyper intelligence programming method too. Judge Napolitano. Who disbelieves. Connecticut interbranch has been switching and forging names. People changing fake. The Wethersfield police pretended they had conversations with me as a kid. I never were at all. I never went to the police station at all when I was a kid. They had wanted me to. And the kids who did go there, Christopher Walters gave a deposition. He didn't want it. They changed him and made him put fake things. He sought me out as a stranger. There had been an exception. He was in a car with my neighbor, Ray Colo, and the people involved with them. And his father had died. And he might have been murdered because that name. And he was increasingly abused by by people involved with foreign and domestic intelligence, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists originally and still, with differences rackets, with names rackets, with location /S use /S collusion /S in the founding locations. Chris Walters and Mike Pandolf have people from Washington, D.C. recorded involved with it, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, also involved with 2 speech class teachers I had in high school. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, also involved with predicate acts on my street with people on all sides of criminal and civil cases, and next to the Connecticut judicial branch offices and corrections offices. With that, as people also involved with home break-ins and time to use /S of it roles. And then that brought up again years later where they had the same. With the corner, there was more recent confessions with the state police and people from online, Town Line Drive and South State Highway involved with what's his name, former senator, congressman, I don't know, Lieberman, and a whole bunch of people from the Britain's Central Connecticut State University have roles with wire and digital crimes, like with the principal upskirt nature, and more confessions they hid from the Wethersfield parents. Increasingly, the difference of our side's guilt, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, or terrorists, that is relative. It's not just by accident. Nature itself communicates. There are more than just the names involved. Like with witch trials, you don't separate the subject of witch trials from the breaching method that had slavery entrenched northern colonies and southern colonies. You do and have, and you've defended it all. But nature tells you don't have to. Nature shows this, doesn't speak with words. We speak with words because our nature is hyper-additional nature because it's his. And we value that the way it teaches us about positive or negative. Here, our special differences forced away from Earth. Lease of Hadith, per science. For the science that pantheism was most probably and demonstrably more probably about, and demonstrably. Because there is that distinct identity of hyper invisible but still discernible that is not the other species' bodies. It is not our own. But it is both anyway. It's why they have its identity relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that, even if it goes away, is why and how the other species' bodies have 2 eyes, and we have 2 eyes. Even the bugs have this nature of extent of consciousness shared. You can make a bug understand that you want it to come on the paper, and you're going to let it go out, and you can get even faster at it. For example, everything is its own body. Every part of your body has a semi-nature relationship to your complete identity. Your complete identity has a semi-nature relationship to its, but complete identity, the identity of all things at once, but also through the species body, as it does it value distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously / hyper simultaneously. And for all that involved, we're in how it shows it is functional, being a distinct identity of hyper invisible but still discernible. Its identity to the extent we can discern. It comes with its complete identity of relationship to itself and the only increasing value of that. And that is we are discerning. where we are discerning the greater identity of a verb by the appreciation of what with the value, with the difference between a present participle, our past participle is. That difference is identities, semi/complete identity of relationship to itself, not just to the sentence. In other words, not just to what is positive. There's a difference between positive that is positive as criminal insidiousness nature, like with truths, like with narratives by motivations for it. So, in other words, people go fishing regarding, they say, oh, I can't believe that. And then, but as collusion with where and how our country's A through Z, sickly distinctly, because everyone was attacked, sickly, everyone was stayed. So right through the founding, this is something that Tucker Carlson missed, but he'll instantly understand if he reads about how we are supposed to understand our founders plural behind James Madison. And then they went and got George Washington to agree to use their plan. And everyone had to hide their full motivations because there was crazy laws against every single person. And everyone had already been sustained roles with it. So everyone had already hurt everyone. Oh, it's not their fault. In other words, what's that bill? What's more and more incapable of being the quality of fact, human nature, capable of overcoming what used and uses that. Not just at formal locations, semi. And when I say formal, then I mean not just the ones where they had internationally monitored conversations, where each side was forced to stay sick fakes. In other words, and there are proofs that, in other words, we can't have a debate about things practical because of how they have replaced the communications of our founders and how it is used self-valued roles with the names of the people of the sciences, reliant upon the names of other names of the syntax of the other names of the other people of the sciences. And the difference of that is used also. Because from all location /s had been sustained that which no one wanted collusions with. Again, but then that you keep going forward in syntax and you have no choice. Instantly, you have no choice. You have to leave things out, change things. Your system's tactical will tear you from that hypernative period. So it had taken a complete possession /hyper possession over every semi-ancient name, took the whole species body, defending syntax and descriptions of the human species body now as abridged from its communications about how by being how and why species body of individual bodies with all group differences being generated as its own. Well, how and why would it be generated as its own if we have nuclear wars? If we have hypersonic missiles pointed at each other? In other words, Scott Rader says it could change. In other words, the whole world. Scott Rader is one of the sources, but he's on different people things. But I watched him on Judge Napolitano's Judging Freedom YouTube channel, the live stream section. Though, please go on there and get him. Ask him. In other words, because the FBI and other agencies and the courts and their family members that are between that, there are proofs. A whole bunch of people with the Del Fair family that know my name, I don't know their name. There was only two of the brothers I know their name. And they have a probate court judge in their family that the father confessed over the phone to me years later. He's involved with a whole bunch of people from other areas involved with the names O'Brien and Cololo and DeMauro, and they're educators that have been putting predicate acts also with mayors and overt criminal enterprises and private ones and terrorists and this Joshua Julian and others involved with digital crimes with the World Trade Center attack. Also ducking behind people going fishing with like saying, "Oh, well, I don't think that's not free speech." To debate what people if think that the agency is guilty or just or good or not. Just focus on the predicate action. You guys are going to be state collusions. In other words, A through Z. If you don't, in other words, change. If you guys change and fake what anyone says, when we pay attention to how there's a predicate acts with facts method that employed black people's rights of eyes to communicate other than nature communicates, and it's still communicating other than our founders communicated to communicate in their name, pretending that's what they communicated. In other words, so they're changing the value of Marbury versus Madison as real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. See, the justice names have been stated. Certain type of victim / hyper victim, predicate acts with facts method needs natures of collusion / S at all locations / S where there are functions by that being haven't been self-valued. But per use / S of that certain type of victim / hyper victim that is blaming, that is roles with what is recorded, where and how it is being, everyone is being forced to blame other things, others, or selves. Again, for things that our founders communicated for us to blame in the breaching method. In other words, and that's being self-valued, the nation debate. Look, people are like, oh, you know more than Einstein's math. Math is important. Thank God we have a guy. Shout out to President / Chief Trump that who knows the math. But all leaders have failed this because we have to do it together. And even if a country gets together, all unity. In other words, if we're systems tactical terror, even if every country gets on the same plan, if we self-value being systems tactical elitarian from how we are a system, species body of individual bodies with group differences demonstrated to us as they are actually demonstrated to us, it will force our special difference from here leads to bodies. So pantheism. Let the wind of time dust off. It is functional being a hyper invisible but still discernible. That's why we're not supposed to agree about its name. And that's why simultaneously we're supposed to agree about it. But there are exceptions. But see, even the readings of the religions, they're using their roles with use / S of that difference and of those differences. As same thing with the names of the people of the sciences. The nature of debate contains arrays of difference and apparent exceptions that are recorded as the breaching method measures and maintains. As we can make hyper positives out of it by using its own method. But right now, it's self-valued. Everyone is self-valued roles, changing and faking what people say. Connecticut Channel 3 News, WFSP. Please. I know in other words, on Facebook, I can't get back onto Facebook. They have my Facebook page there because the FBI and other agencies and courts, they're needing to hide live progressions through administrations. This is before the January 6th, too. This breaching method before our founders were born had been perfected since some ancient times, since before modern religious messengers. There are proofs that it measured and maintained what people needed to respond to things as fact in nature, and then defending them more and more in ways they couldn't afford simultaneously. To not self-value the uses of the words. I mean, the names of the people of the sciences and the names of the sciences and their syntax, abridged from what nature wanted and needs. In other words, it shows us how to make positive value nature progressions, acts, natures. It means out of nowhere, as everywhere at once. Otherwise, we should sense. And we could do this. We could monetize this. In other words, I'll put it. In other words, we could do things. And enable the negotiations of our country's leaders simultaneously, where they can fathom means to do things, and means to help enable us to do things for ourselves. Like in other words, like all agreeing, every single place the human species body has a body. The ground below our feet was tactically denatured in ways specifically to make and maintain, no matter how powerful a country could get, they wouldn't be able to afford properly, means to counter the tax and all that generated, caused by the tactically denatured suburbs, let alone the cities. We are in a semi-ancient trap. Everyone reliant upon food systems and nature tactical terrorists from its own. In other words, so we have to. In other words, we have to train. We have to prepare to move a species body pure. See, be tribes. You have to focus, not change my words, not fake my words. So after the World Trade Center attack, WFSB recorded is confessing to me that they have roles with wire crime acts and methods with police and courts and other countries, including their roles with World Trade Center predicate acts and with other natures of organized crimes, plural, against elderly homes and kids and campuses of all ages and natures, and the differences of the campuses and the differences of who's at what. That is used too, there or at the branch, all sides of criminal and civil cases, private ones, civil ones. No, we're going to observe inside the nature of debate, inside the quality of logic, the nature of logic. There are quality aspects of nature that are criminally for influence, tactical delusional, and that are have been exploited. Where how there are, it's manifest sickly, distinctly, non-distinctly against everyone. It is manifest as an identity theft, fraud, slander method. But everyone blamed other things, others, ourselves, for their roles with that. And so when the forgiveness is because we have to show how that is being used remotely. Forgiveness is because you can't allow people to say, "Oh, I don't believe that you do." In other words, and start getting emotional when we start bringing up the guilt of the three branches of government, the other countries, the difference of that, the intelligence difference of that. That's what slavery and witch trials is about. Bring up the difference of it. Even if the witch trials are made up. There's a witch trials place next to Webb House, now renamed the Webb Stevens House, next to which is where one of the places George Washington had to come right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. With his part using James Madison's plan, counter-extorting and forcing the other founders to be. Everyone had to hide their actual motivations, or they would be to an extent. Otherwise, they would be sensed through their own. This is really why and how the suburbs were designed before our founders were born. They wanted to build better and safer. In other words, there's a landscape theater that was forged to systems not just criminally foreign influence, but criminally foreign influence / hyper-criminally foreign influence, also to keep the individual bodies as countries above locations, areas, and states, only capable of forcing any individual voice to ignore and change finite details, the value of the order of the finite, like pupils, group difference. Nature's body is showing us we have the same color eyes and different color eyes at the same exact time as its own, as we are its own body. Even anything we make like art has its volume science attached to it. And the ancients appreciated this. I swear to God, I think they're the wild wolves. they cut down all the woods. And they're like trying to figure out where to go, and there's nowhere to go. The suburbs are tactically nature. We should have chickens running around now, at least somewhere. But in other words, we could totally fix the place. There are proofs that people are unaware about how the soil is degrading. There's like we took away all the grass too many years. There are way, way, way less worms, if at all, in the soil anymore. Like hardly at all. To walk out into puddles in the rain when all the bugs are less plentiful for the birds. And to walk into the bodies of water when bugs are less plentiful on the surface of the bodies of water. When you have beautiful soil next to a pond with all worms in it, there is constant food for the fish. In other words, and there are proofs that the beaver, nature used the beaver to show Native Americans, distinctly before, but also after it had begun, where the original ancient bond, there are proofs in ancient times before the sciences became criminally foreign influence. Humanity couldn't fathom not valuing our differences to be used to discern the hyper difference. In other words, we valued each other's differences tactilitarian than we do now, because that's what we're looking for. They were being led by what actually causes positive value to age progression acts nature means out of nowhere. So when people use the words crimes, this preaching method used them remotely, showing them they need to not be able to have discern. I'm not even a lawyer. It's a predicate acts with facts method. A human fact should be nature breaching method rules that our founders communicated, that witch trials were about, regardless who made them up what, and that slavery was about simultaneously, and those things should not be parted. That's why, right? That's where and England was not alone with the internationally monitored conversations that forced things like slavery with black northern colonies, southern colonies, more than 13. To break from that, James Madison's plan and founders behind him, whether they wanted to be or not, Native Americans. And, then the rest of the Native Americans had to be forced too by the breaching method. But together we're trying to get on the same page, but we can't do it because everyone still rolls with the differences when they're changing and faking what we say about the predicate acts, about what they believe about the validity of it. Or if we don't use the names, they say something. If we use names, they say other. They pretend on a mass scale the breaching method to show all. In other words, the difference between the guilt is also used by the breaching method. So in other words, they painted themselves in corners. Increasingly, we have to understand the corrections offices and the judicial branch offices has rules with identity theft, fraud, slander between campuses, and planting with names that plant evidences through time on all sides of people's houses. And then later they have to use that. The intercities and intra-cities. And if people move out into another state, this is a racket interstate. So Tucker Carlson has a guest reportedly from Duke University. There's ones with the name. There's at least one with the name Brendan Leahy from Duke University, and there are women in their family involved with Hartford Hospital's Institute of Living who faked conversations with me, and they have roles with a whole bunch of people tied to it. And as former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants and their family members and their educators, like a Thaddeus Skabowski, involved also with a Don LeConche, Alison Mulcahy, and Mendez Police Brothers, and one's named DeMay, were involved with Fox Connecticut News and WFSB. And WTNH has roles at corners of streets with their sources, and with sexual and medical offenders of kids, elderly, the same names involved with elderly homes, programs with their campuses. There are proofs with the veterans' homes next to it. See how the veteran homes are built just like those buildings in the background in rap videos. Those ones, little kids. That before we ever saw that, when I was a kid, already we'd seen how the houses and things were influenced from before our founders were born. And in other words, we are way more might than this. And so, but in other words, we have been on value nature systems tactilitarity from its own, and it has relativity. / relativity is plural. Where it's relative, it's functional, being hyper invisible but still discernible. It is why and how their participle natures are the identity of the verb, bigger than just its verb itself, more finite than it. It is why and how the participle natures are about time / forever nature. It is why and how the infinitive, which is also a verb with the word to before it, the preposition. It makes it an infinitive, also about time / forever nature. Infinity being inside the with that same shared root. No. See, English was revealed to teach about time / forever nature, and forever nature / time, which is about the identity of all things at once to the extent we can discern with every subject. It comes with its complete identity of relationship to itself and the only increasing value of that as God, equally as God. All lies, betrayal tribes who disbelieves. So at and next to each of the campuses, increasingly, people are putting fake and change and having the nature of the debate about what's recorded to measure and maintain their roles, leaving out and having been self-added, leaving out the roles of the hyper-foreign with all locations and foreign. Because it also keeps the foreign blaming A through Z, blaming other things, others themselves for what it caused, historically, actively, and increasingly. Tucker Carlson is an intelligent person, and he would understand if he understood. In other words, that's what Vladimir Putin was speaking about, trying to speak about. He got cut off. People get cut off. They try to appreciate the value of what James Madison communicated, of what demonstrably Mao Zedong communicated. Demonstrably, Vladimir Putin is trying to communicate, and Zelensky. See, an individual, only an individual could lead a country. This preaching method knew that. And it's exploiting where and how only an individual could defend the order of the finite. And so it made that collusion /S with all locations /S. Use /S by itself, by its method. In other words. So there are all kinds of things that we agree about. But then, like, for example, Quinnipiac University, too, has a whole bunch of people involved with judges and prosecutors and people involved with the intelligence community, foreign and domestic, involved with a Kevin Harris. I never had a conversation with him. In 1994, he has roles with Quinnipiac University with planting, predicate acts, identity theft, fraud, same planting evidences, and where they do things and have others record things or have the school record things to lie and fake what came before that, and where and how they make that self-value by locking rolls with it with all sides of criminal and civil cases, interstates. Brian Silver is one of the ones involved with prosecutors and judges and their family members with the Leahy family, interstates, with the ones with the Hartford Hospital. A whole bunch of people at Central Connecticut State University have roles with the names in intelligence, foreign and domestic next to Harvard Hospital, who have also been roles just attaching people to fake conversations with people with names next to campuses to intercities and intra-cities. And people with the forensics location, increasingly whiting forensics, has roles with digital crime acts and methods between police forms, self-value, where that is also recorded. So we have readings of statutes about what's setting on Twitter or Facebook. They can't afford to have discern. And the sequence, they have self-value with the sequence shifts. You know, they use the right to lie where they this preaching method assign people of the law and show them the truth. Oh, you have the right to, to get away with this and do that. You guys are predicate acts, roles, collusion, /S, where all kind of exceptions. At the same time, with the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and news. Nature will show us the answers. Nature will show us that where and how we're supposed to blame a breaching method. Other things, others, or ourselves are being forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded to be blamed. That's why you guys shouldn't change the fake what we say and why we're using your names and when we're speaking about the predicate acts. Facebook pages, since before Facebook, in other words, Facebook people and the difference of their roles of the FBI or the courts involved or the campuses. They have roles with predicate acts for facts between the campuses. Joshua Julian's with the Weathersfield Police Facebook page. Confessed by people near me involved with him with predicate acts with a Joshua Julian and Joshua Schumack with the Weathersfield Police Department, also involved with a Mark Violet. Confessed him involved with them with people next to at the Hartford Hospital. Involved with these, in other words, demonstrated with people on my street involved with them through time with wire crime acts, methods, falsified police reports. They're educators with identity theft process. I never had a class with a Violet. They made two quick exceptions of me knowing him, walking by him to make it because they have roles with all sides of criminal and civil cases and people with the state judicial branch offices and corrections offices. And next to it, involved with the World Trade Center attack too, more predicate acts also, and other natures of organized crimes with the fake conversations and with that the news pretended with me. And then Fox Connecticut News has sources and intelligence next to them, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, and involved with uses of them remotely, criminally, foreign influence, tactical conclusions, in their spot, in the spots next to them, in relative ways. But this is also as collusion /S with a hyper foreign. And it uses the differences of their guilt or the federal. Because former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin's also involved with a Robert Chevrolet and with a Thaddeus Grabowski outside of Fox Connecticut News. Involved with a whole bunch of people at the spots next to Fox Connecticut News. Involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders. I never had communications with the Allegra associated with his neighbors, a Faenza, right across the street from a South Saviella who was in my fourth grade class, increasingly involved with mayors, years apart, involved with foreign and domestic family members and people involved with federal criminals before they got caught, criminal enterprises and terrorists, putting fake things in databases together and with the news at the same time, collusion /S. Actually, it was so in other words, please, America, Also, WFSB, Hilton Cadley came to my class when I was in fourth grade with the one with the increasingly people in my fifth grade are tied to body dumping spots, the same ones, in houses too, involved with wire crimes with the police forms, interdepartments, and overt criminal enterprise probably at the same time, a whole bunch of different countries. They use their differences, where and how they pretend passions and emotions with delusions relative to. See, the experts of the names of the people of sciences have delusions involved too. And there are sequence shift roles. Also, the differences of their roles with guilt through collusion/S, where and how the branches of government individually grouped them together, and the exceptions as the intelligence as the exception nature that is being having been used remotely too, as we can discern too, relative to where and how. Again, the breaching method as a scientific value, it is being has been replaced, just like nature's own communications to us. The nature of debate regarding how it's about a predicate acts and facts method and or a criminal insidiousness nature delivery system method. Criminal insidiousness generated not just by criminal interstates, generated not just by international, not just by this breaching method knew that any grouping of countries that would try to counter what it costs and keeps at all locations, areas, and states everywhere the species body is, they wouldn't be able to make a voice to defend syntax nature without being further collusion with/s with itself too. Had complete possession of each age of fact, human nature, each campus, each difference. Forgiveness is also because in the nature of debate, you guys are screening what's actually said. You guys are changing it. The FBI has guilt with people and courts. A whole bunch of people on the state judicial branch offices make pipe bombs and try to frame me for it. Also with the people on off the state, on Hangdog Lane, and with Mike Roberts, and people involved with judges and prosecutors, with a Rick C. and Paglione, and a Mark Violet, and a Justin Kovinskis, and educators on off Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut through time, who intercities and intra-cities have been involved with foreign and domestic medical families, and including military too. A Joe DeMar and Ray Cololo have intelligence families involved with a Marco Mancini, where they tried to frame me for what their roles. They were influenced to build a pipe bomb and then pretend it was me. In other words, and then go to his house real quick, make a fake exception of me knowing him. I never had a class with a Marco Mancini in my grammar school or any other school. There are people that were in his class involved with predicate acts and with putting fake things in databases. A whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital. And Marco Mancini, I never had is nothing personal against him. In other words, shout out to Marco Mancini. But in other words, Paul too, Eric Klotz has the FBI people and people like Joe DeMoro involved with the Weathersfield Police forging and switching names with other departments, and people on my street involved with the name Cololo and O'Brien and Smith involved with some untimely deaths with a Robert Rodriguez. People from other areas have been planting evidence on my street. I don't know all their names. One of them is Robert Rodriguez, and that was confirmed on Facebook. Then they took my Facebook page away because it confirmed a whole bunch more too. Oh, in other words, all we have to do is you guys keep it real, but you can't do it. Not one person. Follow mandated law for them. Get them on paper, one name in sequence, please, Judge Napolitano. They put a whole bunch of falsified police reports and confessions when you go to the police stations, and they're lying about their motivations as collusion/S with foreign bodies and people involved with other natures of predicate acts. And constantly all natures of investigators are being and have been used remotely, criminally, foreign influence. There are means that how we could discern this. Joe tomorrow will confess to an extent he knows. I recorded him with his family and with his neighbors, hiding things about what was actually recorded. But when he called me on the phone, there were proofs with other people in the background because they've been changing and faking what's recorded increasingly with people tied to that and home break-ins involved. And these are people involved with the Hartford Hospital increasingly and the fire departments. There are proofs that they have roles with fire departments with Russians because they have to keep water cooled because of nuclear. And they're hiding behind these excuses and rights to lie about classified things that are not even classified because they're also bringing up that. They're demonstrating it. What are they doing with it? What are they doing with the people with the fire department next to Harvard, next to Trinity College with this Joshua Stryker? And people involved with this Joshua Stryker planting evidences all along Route 3 with the family members of judges and foreign and domestic, with identity theft, fraud, slanders. What are they doing with the news at the same time, collusions, and with the leaders of the kids and the kids of them? And that has rules with people involved with murders at the same time, with the murder of Greg Kyler, even if it was made up. The reporting of it too, timed it, rolls with it. In other words, please. Who disbelieves, get them on paper, please. The FBI has roles with a Joshua Stryker with a whole bunch of different countries at Trinity College. They were planting evidences with the World Trade Center attack, also with a whole bunch of people tied to the conversations with the intelligence with shipping locations of various natures, including Coca-Cola, regarding the corner of Griswold Street and Fairlane Drive, and the recent home breaking reported by them. Poor people, I'm sorry. It's the people that lived across you guys, the street from you guys. That said, like one guy said he was a partner of a Kevin Dillon, a Weathersfield detective. Said that to a speech class teacher. I took speech class again. The second time I had to do my senior year, which is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Increasingly, people with Washington, D.C. involved with two speech class teachers I had, involved with various natures of organized crime, with names on my street, increasingly involved with people at the corrections offices and the judicial branch offices, increasingly involved with wire crime acts and methods of Weathersfield police and court switching and forging names, and their rules with crime scenes next to them, and body dumping spots brought up at the same time, and their rules further with child abusers, leaders of the kids, years apart, where they had youth/estimate roles. Increasingly, the intelligence community takes pictures of things and pretend they mean what they don't. Use truth for lies. Where how the uses of the differences of their guilt, where they're a collusion/S with a method. And that's also part of the answer. You guys are pretending these things are conspiracy theories that are not. And you guys are rules making them up and leaving it to the experts. Experts are delusions raw. They're put fake conversations with me at Hartford Hospital. And then they use that. Then they do all kinds of wire and mail crime, digital crime methods with them. All kinds of nature of organized crime with people with the intelligence community, with these campuses, including fire and medical, and especially with the names all along next to Hartford Hospital, all along the roads and routes. Not one computer, it's vaccines. So get them on paper, one name and sequence, and get me off the fake conversations with WFSB so we could address the others with WTNH further involved with predicate acts and with you guys leaking otherwise, because you guys brought up the campus, the use of location. So in other words, use of location and use of differences, like the differences between Democrat or Republican. And that's a threat against against Kamala Harris, against the Congress, against the Republicans. The difference of that was someone's measuring here. And even if it's for legitimate reasons by legitimate people, its roles with leaving out and replaced is what James Madison actually communicated, what our founders actually communicated, and use of their words leaving out what was entrenched. Sensing everyone's sense and sensibilities, use Jane Austen's phrase. Roles with the method, everyone hurting each other. All help as collusion / S2. All syntax with it. All database identities of relativity to ourselves. Used by a breaching method with all roles hyper additionally now. More and more. Incapable of affording to be discerned how it uses different / S. Timing, names uses. Faked recorded audio and video. Used through administrations to use administrations remotely too. Criminally foreign influence, tactically, delusions raw. Increasingly self-valuing even the worst things to pretend other. Like the World Trade Center attack. Even though it hurts themselves the most, killed them, some of their family members. They have the victims and the lawyers still roles. They have Sandy Hook Promise and Alex Jones. I still can't get a response from the FBI too. The FBI has been using the right to lie where they don't have the right to lie as collusion / S. Increasingly with the Facebook pages of the British Superior Court, Wethersfield Police, and the campuses. Increasingly there's a Joshua Julian. I just wrote a little in the information section. The Joshua Julian is increasingly involved with people interagencies, with former director of the FBI, Robert Lusk, and people at Hartford hospitals with this Mark Violet and Ray Collo, and people on Elm Streets in Wethersfield and Rocky Hill. A whole bunch of people recorded capacity demonstrate confirmed with them. Collusion with WFSB, with sexual and medical offenders of kids and elderly, and with my past neighbors, forced to collusion with them at the elderly home. And the uses of the 3 spots at the end of the Berlin Turnpike with the names at, and that's like that's pretty close to next to the corrections officers, no. But those 3 spots at the end of the Berlin Turnpike increasingly involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, with family members, involved with that. In other words, the different, then they pretend, oh, well, these persons saying bad about the court. No, I'm saying they're all at the same time. That's what's recorded. You guys brought up people. You guys brought up murders. People. There's people from Puerto Rico involved with this Cintron. Also with the police chief Cintron. The difference of that people from Puerto Rico and the Cintron and the roles with the intercities Connecticut and the campuses in Sandy Hook with the ones with this name O'Brien, increasingly involved with them with wire crimes. Hartford Police, Wethersfield Police, Rockfield Police, Newington Police. They're forging in names and switching names into branch to preventing people from being organized. No, where they're shown they need to hide that. For example, where and how they have the audacity to still be pretending they can be helping people get organized after. Well, that's our job. In other words, you have some sick people involved with each of the names of the sciences. The names of the people of sciences came through 6 sciences. This is why they can be healed, but you guys have to follow mandated law. Get me off the fake conversations that the interbranch and that WFSB pretended at the same time while the other news agencies with their sources were planting fake things into the things too, while they're using that remotely and other people in the background private at the same time, fake transcripts, fake audio and video, forging names on a mass scale, all kinds of sick things, all kinds of, well, I'll show you how to speak. Well, Whisper Creek, please, Judge Napolitano. Let me show you how to heal the world, because they have this problem too. I'll show you. In other words, if you guys want to debate, that's just about the ground locations. That's why you're bringing up the locations in the streets, in your houses. All you have to do is have one person. Please, everyone who went to my campus, you guys will know. That's all I need is one person who disbelieves. Everyone, the people that were not even in my class are involved with this, with the people that I didn't even go to schools with the intelligence that were my age, like putting the fake things in there. But also at the same time, with a whole bunch of other countries in the hyperforeign, which is again what we're discerning when we're paying attention. Black people's white survival. These are some black KKK Confederate flag theme, Latino theme, Italian theme, Irish themed, all going down to the Wethersfield police, falsified police reports at the same time together. Even when they're not, even when it's just on the ones on Facebook. So the Wethersfield police attached me to fake conversations with them as a kid, and now as an adult. So I can't go there and communicate with them. We have to communicate here. And the FBI are involved with the wire crime acts and methods, indifference to it at least, and worse than criminal competence. And they have criminal foreign influenced roles too, other ways discernible, and relative delusions. And so, in other words, they are with interbranch refuses to identify themselves legitimately. A breaching method showed them how they could exploit, like streams of people going into superior courts all the time, as collusion /S with all location /S. Use /use is by itself. A very simple way. It's only extensive where it is manifest. So to appreciate it eventually we just have to look where and how the branches of government, the intelligence, names A through Z, and news and communications, where and how they are at the same time being and having been tools used to blame other things, others, ourselves, what nature showed us to blame, and what our founders communicated for us to blame. Like, for example, the breaching method, replaced from the communications of our founders. So the sequence shifts, and these are names that were at the World Trade Center, the court next to it, and spots next to it right before the attack on the World Trade Center. And the court was proven after the attack to have changed the legal time stamping of a paper to make it appear as if it had been time-stamped late to the court, the Ninth Circuit Court. So the court names on both sides are also ones with the FBI director and an officer Hunter involved with some Hartford courts families and intimate ties with foreign and domestic military and their roles with the police departments. There are proofs that West Hartford police have roles with New Britain Avenue with a whole bunch of people tied to the name Cololo. And there's a Lance Cuddy involved with a what do you call it? One of the people involved with WTNH, with one of the teachers that was putting fake things with WTNH, I believe was with them. And they also have roles with people on Ridge Road, on corners of Ridge Road, planting predicate acts, identity theft frauds with them. And wire crime, mail crime, falsified police reports, intelligence, community, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. And them or the people next to them as the Paul Kelly. And these are increasingly people involved with the family members of probate court judges and superior court judges and family members tied to the same house /S, increasingly as ones planting lie progressions from each. In other words, Eric Klass will tell you I barely know him. Last time I communicated him, he confessed CCSU, Central Connecticut State University. He was going to Central Connecticut State University and was right at the corner of Griswold Street and Fairlane Drive as one of the people increasingly involved with the DeMauro family and a Joshua Stryker and a Heather Hansen involved with the co-defendants and family members of a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, also involved with the Thaddeus Grabowski next to Fox Connecticut News with an Eric Jensen and a Mike DeMay, involved with some sexual and medical offenders of kids, including, they said, and recorded, and ones that abused other ways. I don't know if sexually too. Kind of when he yelled out about her. The one that was in the class, one of the ones that was in the class with me. One of them, there was four of us in the class with the algebra teacher that repeated sexual things and about how she was Jewish, that was repeated by the Michael with him when she repeated the sexual things. When he sat next to her in my algebra class, Miss Riley, And the name Riley is also one of the ones with the FBI and other police forms, state police, intelligence, with spots and names next to the Wethersfield Board of Education and next to the campuses. And it has roles with the town offices. And, not it is proofs, not just this town. And with all sides of criminal and civil cases and the court's names and the intelligence tied to them, the difference of their collusion, worst, or the news, but they're putting the same sequence shifts, the same tactically delusions, raw qualities, aspects of nature in collusion/S. When did the breaching method stop being a scientific value? In other words, when we were kids, many of us we had the means to discern there's a breaching method here. We have means way better than this. And then we are sensed when we use the reason about how we have to show how there's guilt with the branches of government, the difference of the branches of government as guilt, the people that are trying to counter. The overt criminal, all the crazy natures only allowed to be, like criminal and citizens' natures, wrongdoers, mass predicate acts with facts methods, roles, needs and natures of collusion/S. That's weird, worse. So in other words, follow the sequence shifts. This breaching method shows them, brings them, okay, now you have to make January 6th treatments. And then they try to do it January 6th. Oh, because we're going to make an example to the people. They're not making an example to the people. In other words, they're covering up things and they're showing how they need to hide live progressions, the people that work with the judicial branch offices and corrections offices, and how they're on a town line, the corrections offices. That proves that they've been doing some kind of, the mass acting, fake sides of issues relative to the fake differences, rackets with all nature. Nature should, by the identity showing us we have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. When you pay attention to the wire crime acts and methods, the digital crime acts and methods, and the tactically delusions wrought names of the people of the sciences that are also collusions with other natures of organized crime, predicate acts and facts method, not even a lawyer. Let's get them on paper, one name and sequence, please. Who disbelieves? Get Wethersfield Police on paper, one name and sequence. They made a bunch of confessions about the name switching and forging through administrations too, and has roles with state police and the FBI and criminal enterprises and private ones in other countries at the same time. That's why we need to get them on paper. Otherwise, they're going to start leaking bad now. Yeah.